Inclusion and Belonging, where we talk about everything under the sun related to diversity, equity, inclusion, and belonging, and amplify the great work of people like Latresa Hill Chandler, who's joining me today. I'm Mo. I am a white woman, mid-length. Actually, I need to get a cut. Mid-length red hair. I am wearing black and white tortoiseshell glasses. Behind me is my bookshelf with some books and tchotchke and some summer flowers. Latresa and I met at a conference. And it was like one of those sort of love at first sight.
Yes.
And I wanted to have you on so you could share the great work that you're doing. So please introduce yourself and then we'll dig in.
Sure. So I am Latresa. I say it's kind of like people often say Latricia because it's spelled that way, but I put the phonics in everything so people understand it's like a tree and then sa. I am first personal. I am a mother of a 15-year-old, so a single mother of a 15-year-old volleyball player. Yes. Girlfriend is asking for all kinds of stuff right now, but it's volleyball. We play volleyball year round, Mo. So it's school volleyball season now. And so I am originally from Southern Arkansas. I have gone around the world and back, but I'm back in Arkansas after about 30 years. As you say, as you described yourself, I have blonde hair. I love lipstick. Lipstick is my thing. I'm actually sitting in my office in Fayetteville, Arkansas now. I love cupcakes. I'm a little bit of a hotel snob. I don't like my foods to touch unless they go together, like Mexican food. And so if it's a barbecue bun, it can't touch my beans. They can't touch my mac and cheese. So I don't like that stuff to touch. I love, in addition to lipstick, I'm a shoe person. I believe your clothes, you gain weight, lose weight, you know how we do, but your shoe size usually stays the same. So I can go, but they have to be on sale. Like I am a shoe lover unless, of course, on sale. So I have that issue. I have to have a Diet Pepsi every morning. Professionally, I'm the Chief Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Officer for a CDFI, a community development financial institution that's located in Arkansas, Mississippi Delta. I have been here for 1 year. Prior to that, I was the Diversity Inclusion Officer for Our Best Bank. Prior to that, I was a Senior Strategy Manager in Diversity and Inclusion Development for Walmart, which is what got me back to Northwest Arkansas. Prior to that, I was in Indianapolis doing a bunch of stuff. I worked for Indiana University and Indianapolis Public Schools and Veolia North America, all in the areas of diversity of some sort. So either supplier diversity, I moved over to the people side, which is the DE&I side, probably about 10 years ago. So been doing diversity work for now. This is like my 29th year. So I know I look 30, right?
You do. You do. It's the lipstick.
It's the lipstick and the blonde. Don't forget the blonde hair. And so that's kind of me. I love it though.
I love all of that. And I can't wait till the next time we're in person and we have a meal together because I'm totally looking at your plate.
Everybody does. Don't judge me because I found, in DE&I work, we find that more people have more in common than we do differences, right? Absolutely. You would be amazed at how many people just don't say it, but if you watch them eat, you can kind of tell.
I love it. I love it. Right. And I think that is like how we are building bridges to our commonality.
Yes.
And so I loved that introduction. And I love that you shared your background in terms of, doing this work for a long time in a lot of different ways.
Yep.
How did you get started? How did you get started in the work?
So it started with supplier diversity. I was working at purchasing I told you about how I like to shop and shoe sales. So I was always one of those people that you could give me a project and I would say how much, and I made sure I stayed within the how much.
Yeah.
So purchasing was my first thing. And then as part of the role, I started actually at Cummins Engines, if you know anything about Cummins Engines.
Yep.
Started there in Memphis, Tennessee, because I forgot this part. I'm a first generation college grad from an HBCU. I'm a proud HBCU alumni. Okay.
Yes.
So working in and so one of the things was, okay, we need to know how many vendors we use that are minority and women owned. And so I started this like my own database, and I started going out and I started meeting businesses to get into the work of supplier diversity.
Yeah.
In my purchasing role in Memphis in supplier diversity, corporate Cummins in Columbus, Indiana said, hey, we'd like to, do this on a more cooperative type of thing for everybody at Cummins. Could you come to corporate and kind of lead some of that stuff? Like, yeah, sure. And I remember this.
Listen, y'all, I want to pause for a second because
Okay.
As Latricia is saying this, understand supplier diversity is a thing now.
It's a thing.
But when she's she's laying the groundwork, y'all, for what supplier diversity looks like today.
Yes, it does. Yes.
So like trailblazing in this space. So thank you for the work that you've done.
Yeah.
Right. And now it's like this big engine talking.
Right.
Right. So keep going. I just wanted to point that out to people because I think people that are newer to the work think these things have existed forever, and they have not.
They have not. They have not. And the supplier diversity was one of those things. Just like anything DE&I, it was kind of intentional. It's kind of intentional to make sure that you carve out a piece of these big contracts to make sure you're including small minority and women-owned businesses. So that quickly became my passion. But I'm going to tell you how I got started in what it feels like for belonging. So at corporate one day, and I'm presenting something into in our Cummins everyday world. Now, just be reminded that Cummins is a non-traditional business for women, let alone women of color. We're talking about the truck and engine business.
Yep.
So not a lot of women in this industry, Mo, at all. And I remember getting ready to present. I was doing a presentation. I was all snazzy. I took my laptop into this room, and I remember going into this room. It was about 10 white men, older white men. And I remember taking my laptop, and I was trying to demonstrate and show them some of the data around the purchases we've made, vendors we've made, what little bit is with MBE. Here's my strategy and plan to include minority and women-owned businesses. And every time I tried to talk, I was being talked over. Every time I said something, somebody was like, yeah, okay, or talking over and not looking. And I remember one of my colleagues or one of the guys that were in the room were like, okay, y'all, let's let her talk. Let's hear her out. And I remember the feeling I felt to be excluded, right? Mm-hmm. I didn't know what that meant at the time. I just knew that it didn't feel good, okay? Right. And in my mind, I started thinking about all the ways that I could why I'm being excluded. Okay. So I started naming stuff, Mo. I was like, okay, is it because I'm Black? Is it because I'm a female? Is it because I'm younger? Because I was younger at the time. I was in my early 20s, late 20s, mid to late 20s. Is it because I'm from the South? Because these were Midwesterners. We were in Columbus, Indiana. I said, is it because, I just started naming stuff. Is it because I'm educated? I even went there and said, is it because of my red shoes? I had on red pumps that day. When you excluded, you don't know what you're just like, why? Because I feel like I'm part of this room. I also remember being so hurt that I went to my car and I literally banged on the steering wheel that day. I was already feeling it. It was a culture shock moving from Memphis, Tennessee to Indianapolis, Indiana. I was by myself. I didn't know. From that point, I said, I'm going to do whatever I have to do to make sure everybody feels like they're included, that no one feels like they don't belong. I'm going to help everybody feel like they're included. That's how I got started.
I love that story because for so many of us, right, we have that memory of the time.
Yes.
That said, where we hit the point where it's like, no more, and how can I be a part of the solution?
Yeah, that's exactly what I did. And so I started going hard I call for the underdogs. Because if there's any reason you got red shoes on, you're younger, you're Black, you're female, I'm gonna go hard for those people who traditionally are being excluded from conversations, from the table, from decisions, from strategies in the workplace. Let me go there. Let's just go there.
You know what is interesting? So at Moxie, we say we drink our own champagne. So we always do our weekly team play, and we had a meeting this morning, and we were talking about intersectionality because our badge challenge this month is around intersectionality. And we were talking about belonging because I said, for me, when we are talking about intersectionality, it's intersectionality, understanding your privilege, allyship, right?
Oh, yes.
And how they combine. And then I got into some of the neuroscience with the team. I said, listen, belonging is a fundamental human need. It is not one group, another group. We had to have a sense of belonging to survive back, right? Our brain is still wired the same way. We still have the same hardware.
Yep.
And so belonging isn't something for one group. It is literally everybody.
Everybody.
And so I love what you were talking about in terms of paying attention to that and being a part of the change.
And one time I've even heard that when your body or your brain feels the same thing as physical pain.
It does.
If you're excluded. So if you're excluded, that takes me back to that day, how I was hurting so bad because I was not being included in the conversations and things like that. And it hurt so bad. I've even heard that if you take like Tylenol or something, that it could help because it's your physical pain. Exactly.
It's the same neural pathways firing.
It's the same.
Yeah. That's why we say this work is so important. Right. And most people, the majority of people, do not want to make other people feel that way. Right.
Yeah.
There are some sociopaths, I guess, but most people don't want to do that. They don't know what half the time we call them NBC, nice but clueless.
Yeah, exactly.
Right. Like those men in that room. If you went back to them now and said and showed them, they didn't even know they were doing it.
They didn't even know they were doing it. I'm sure they didn't. And I don't think it was intentional. I think it was unconsciously done to some probably, but
And then that's the shift we need to make.
Is the shift.
Making people conscious of their behaviors and making them accountable.
Yeah, we all got it.
The tools, giving them the resources to move from nice but clueless NBC to nice and inclusive.
Oh, I love it. I love that. Yeah. I love it. Yeah.
So tell me about the work you're doing now.
Sure. So as I mentioned, this role, I've only been there a year. I'm the first one to hold the role. However, at Southern Bancorp, DE&I has been a part of the foundation of its founding principles some 30 years ago. Because we are a CDFI, and CDFIs focus on serving the underserved communities, the unbanked and underbanked communities. We talk a lot about lending to, we're the people that if you're turned down from traditional banks to getting loans, you can come to us. We typically,
well, we know, right? We know that bias in lending is so real.
It's so real. The equity gaps in like lending and home ownership and all is huge. And so our focus is around entrepreneurship, so jobs, home ownership, and savings. Those are we call them our big, hairy, audacious goals are around those three areas. Okay. So it was already kind of embedded in just.
Can I ask you a follow-up question? When you're looking at entrepreneurship, home ownership, and savings, you're talking about creating generational wealth.
It's where our tagline is wealth builders for everyone.
Okay.
So we are about building wealth for generations. We have stories. You should check us out. You and the rest of the audience at banksouthern.com. We have some stories on there that talks about some of our people, some of our customers, some of our people, I say people because they're our people, they have never envisioned owning a home, Mo. And we come in and we give them a loan and we work with them. We have credit counselors that help us. We do free tax return stuff. We have an amazing program right now with an IDA. We call it individual development plan assistance, where if you deposit with certain criteria, a certain amount of money in our accounts, we have a grant to give you $2,000. We would give it to you, right? To focus on those areas: education, home ownership or home repair, and small business development creation. So DE&I has always been a foundation of Southern. As a matter of fact, within the last year, we have added diversity, equity, and inclusion. If we have a graphic, I thought it was here, but we have what we call the RAISE, our core values, RAISE, and they all stand for, if somebody quizzed me, I would fail today. Raise responsibility.
That's because we're live.
Accountability, yeah. But DE&I is at the foundation, so we're at the bottom. So all of our core values are a part of what our DEI is the foundation of all of our core values. We so the work that I do is really around how do we become more inclusive intentionally to be more, and we define DE&I 3 letters. Diversity is around representation. So how do we make sure we mirror those communities we serve? And look like the folks that we serve. We're in Arkansas, Mississippi Delta, 2 of the most impoverished areas in the country, right? How do we make sure we look like those people through representation, race, age, gender, sexual gender identity, disability, veteran. E is for equity, which is fairness. How do we make sure all of our policies and procedures, like you said, our lending practices, our loan policies, how do we make sure that they are fair? And to everybody. And then inclusion, that last piece, belonging. How do we make sure we belong, and our employees belong, but also our community members belong? We call them our people. That's what we call our customers.
Love that, right? And I love that. That's community.
Yes. So that's kind of what we do. So what would
you say some of your best practices are?
Oh goodness. So we have in DE&I, we're just starting, right? So I won't say just starting. We have a newfound relationship with DE&I.
Yeah. Well, right. Who you are, fundamentally, is based in this. So one of the things that we did when I first got there is I thought it was really important to level set, because DE&I has been a part of Southern for so many years. Everybody had different types of definitions on what DE&I was for them. And so in this first year, we did a lot of going out into the market. I'm a people person, you know that. I like going out, talking to people and meeting them and getting hugs and finding out where the best restaurants are in the towns and where's the best boutique to go shoe shopping and things like that. So we went out and we did some level setting. Me and my team kind of went out and said, we're going to define for you how we define what DE&I is at Southern. We're going to do we're all adults, so let's do some adult learning participation activities. So we did some get to know people. This is true story. Had a couple of women who were really good friends in the bank, both have been working in the same branch for a number of years. And we do this one activity around telling us a little bit more about you. It's a flower petal activity. It's kind of talk about what everybody has in common versus what everybody has that's unique to them. We do it some ways that people kind of intersect, it's through an intersectionality kind of thing. And there were 2 women and they were cat-cornered the room, and we intentionally. And one kind of said, well, I like to DIY projects. And the other said, I like baking. And from across the room, you would hear this, I didn't know that. And so
it was kind of one of those things where you found, again, common ground, right? So not focus so much on the differences we have, but what do we really have in common? And these are people who just never thought to be intentional, to be curious about other things outside of what they already knew. So anyway, we've been level setting, going around into the markets to level set. Amo, you froze. Is there, do you still see me? I don't want to keep talking and you're not there. Hey, Mo. Hello. Okay, looks like we have frozen. Oh no. Oh no, do I go back in? It's recording. Let me see if she's gonna send me a message. I'm gonna click off and go back on. I'm gonna click off. If I end it though, does it have people down here? Should I end it? Well, let's see. I can keep rolling if I need to, and keep the conversation going. Let's see, Mo had given me some questions. And she was asked, I was right in the middle about some best practices. I suppose I could keep going. Okay, so we were in the middle of talking about best practices because I see it's still live, I see it's still recording, and Mo is not here. So I'm just going to continue to talk about best practices. Hey, let's pivot. I think we all learned how to pivot in the COVID era. So in addition to level setting on some of the things that we did at Southern by going around talking to our teammates across our footprint, we also created some quantitative and qualitative data sets. And we're working on both of those. So first we started asking for We completed a survey, of course, a post survey to ask folks what they thought DE&I was at the company, what were their experiences. We didn't go too deep into what they were expecting because they didn't really know. This was before we actually started doing the level setting workshops. This was before we actually had a lot of conversations. This was really me being introduced and talking about what the purpose of me being there was, and then just asking folks what they thought about it up to date. Because as I mentioned, this was kind of DEI was kind of founded in this era, or in the mission and margin of Southern. So we just wanted to kind of keep going. And so we did this post survey. We did to get the feedback from people, and it was really interesting. Out the gate, we got about 77% of people responded to the survey. Now, keep in mind, Southern is a very small CDFI compared to compared to CDFIs, we're one of the larger ones. But your traditional banking, we say we are not a traditional bank. We bank different. We were fairly smaller. We're 500 employees or so. We're aiming to be 2.5 billion in assets. So we after we did the kind of post survey, got results that helped us as we started to talk about and frame the framework around when we were out actually level setting. So that was pretty good. We're actually now just getting into the data. We started with some very basic generic data. I just kind of wanted to know what the demographics were of the company. So the company makeup of those diverse areas: race, gender, age, ethnicity. We didn't do a self-ID campaign or anything like that. So we don't know how many people we have with disabilities. We don't know how many people are of the LGBTQ plus IA community. We don't know exactly how many veterans we have, protected class veterans, but we'll get to that. We just kind of wanted to know just basic overview of what DE&I is. And she's back. What happened?
I don't know, but you are the best, right? That is right there, y'all. That is showing grace under pressure.
I was like, let's keep it rolling. But I sat there for a minute, like, let's keep it moving.
It kicked me off. It would not let me back in, but here we are.
Here we are.
I'm assuming that you were sharing your best practices.
I was sharing best practices because that's where we left off, and that's Perfect. Where we are continuing. So,
right, this is what we always have to be willing to do, right?
Adapt. I said pivot. We learned how to pivot really well in COVID. Like, it's nothing anymore.
Oh my goodness!
Let's just do it. So I was just sharing with that. Some of the qualitative and quantitative analysis that we plan to do after we level set, which was we did this survey, a post audit is what I called it, a post survey, where we just wanted to know. It was before we did the level setting workshops across the markets. It was just barely me being there, but we had such a nice response rate. We had 77% response rate, which was
That's
really
great.
Out the gate. And it was very basic and generic mode. We were just asking folks what they thought DE&I was. And then kind of tell us what you're expecting it to be. Like, tell us more about that. Helped us a little bit as we began to go with the level setting and to just get that feedback from people in the company. What we found is that plus the going out in the markets, meeting people face to face, we found that people just really wanted an avenue to be their authentic self. They want to know that they're in an environment that's safe. They were so glad to, people are welcoming to their differences. I've had people just immediately, you know how it is in DE&I, people just kind of open up and start talking to you about their lives. And I've shared tears, many tears.
Yep. Right. And that idea of that deep listening.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
Getting the data. Right. Yes. So you've got data and deep listening and people yes. and that connection, right?
That connection.
Really, to a person in the inclusion interviews, people always say, see me.
See me. Yes.
Get to know me.
Yes. Yeah. And that's what helped. In addition to socializing DE&I and what it is now for the company, it just really provided some relational type of things between me and and then they begin to kind of trust some of the things because I'm kind of delivering with what I said we would do. Now,
Yep.
it didn't come, it didn't come without some resisting,
Of course.
especially when we start to talk about things that people are, in my opinion, just not educated on, like exactly like what pride is, right?
Right,
What it really
right,
means.
right.
Or when we start to talk about, holidays
Yep.
and opportunities. So people just really, wanted to understand that. So we started doing that. And then I've always being the first, this isn't the first, I was first in my last role, and I've been first in a lot of roles to kind of create these opportunities. I always follow like a maturity model because it keeps us on the road to progression.
Yep.
And so I'm part of the leadership team at Southern. I report directly to the CEO.
Full stop, y'all. Full stop right there.
Okay.
All right. Okay. Keep going. How
Okay.
cool that is.
Yes.
Right. That says everything.
Yes. His name is Darren Williams. He is amazing. He's a lawyer by trade, but a banker by heart. Like he is just literally, let's get it done. Right. And he made that perfectly clear when I took the role, his commitment, and then our board is extremely committed. We're a three-part company. So we have the holding company, Southern Bancorp Incorporated. We have our fund development or our foundation, which is our Southern Bancorp Community Partners. And then we have the bank side, which is Southern Bancorp Bank. So we have three different boards. All three board of directors and the boards came out the gate being completely committed. And y'all know you can't, Mo, you can't do this work without having some commitment.
You can't.
It doesn't work. Been there, done that. It does not work.
Right. Right. We were talking about mental health before this started, right? Like that'll be the thing that wears your mental health down.
It will wear your mental health. Been there and no longer there. How about that? So having that commitment and then being part of the leadership team. So I'm involved in the strategies of the company because if it's nothing else that chaps my hide, it's Family Guy. If you don't know Family Guy. I did indulge in Family Guy, like I'm sorry, I love Stewie. And okay. So what chaps my hide is when people try to put DE&I as a program.
Yeah.
It doesn't work as a program either, because that's what some of the problems are now. It's going away, right? It has to be part of the strategy. Every strategy in the company, it has a place for it. And so I said all that to say, when I introduced my maturity model to the leadership team, to Darren, it was like, here's our road to progression. So this is how we'll begin to measure what our maturity models look like and where we are as it relates to leveling on DE&I. So those are some of the best practices that I think in a year we're working on pretty heavily.
Well, and I right, that's first extraordinary in a year.
Yeah.
And there were some things in there, right? Everybody from everything that Latricia said, even what do these words mean? We know how powerful language is, right? But let's get a shared lexicon for what we're doing. Right. And then embedding it in everything, getting that data, having it as how are we integrating this in everything that we're doing, and understanding as an organization, the maturity model. You know, one of the things that we talk about, Latricia, is when you talk about inclusion, everybody's at a different place.
There is.
You can't put a model of, and one of the things that I think is interesting that we see is organizations that are like, oh, we've been doing this forever. Well, that tells me a lot about diversity and equity and systems. It doesn't tell me anything about inclusion and belonging.
No. And you can have, this, you can have as much diversity and representation in any organization. If they're still not feeling like they belong or they're included, it doesn't even matter. It doesn't matter. So we're putting a big emphasis on how people feel belonging. We do some things. We get together twice a month. We're just starting, and it's slow, but you know how it is. We get together twice a month where we're having inclusion breaks, where we have people to come and kind of talk about. We host it. It's for 30 minutes. We host it and have people. We have a topic, right? and we kind of show a video and talk about some resources, but we allow people to just to come and learn so they can become more comfortable talking about it. That's part of it too, Mo. You know, the more comfortable you are, the more ally you become, the more results you'll see. I mean,
well, and you get more comfortable in knowing that you're going to make a mistake.
Right.
Right. And that everybody does. And that's a part of it, is learning through that.
That's a part of it. Yep.
Yeah. Yeah. So it sounds like that's a part of kind of what's next, right?
That is.
Yeah. What else is next?
So I've been doing a lot of, in my maturity model, this first phase is all around just education and awareness. Yeah. I don't think that we could talk the talk. We can't walk the talk if we don't even know what the heck we're talking about, right? And so I'm putting a lot of emphasis on getting our internal stuff, our folks internally ready.
Yep.
So that's where that level setting came from. That's where these micro learnings is what I'm calling. So people can, we've actually started, I'm glad you asked that. We are starting what we're calling a people first leadership development program. And we're going to go down at least 5 levels in the organization. Because as you know, we were at that conference, everybody talked about, the leadership gets it. And usually the people that's doing the work, that's, face forward with our customers, it's that mid-management that's kind of muddy. And so we're starting with the mid-management and working down, doing this leadership development workshop. We're kicking it off in a couple of weeks. It's a curriculum that's kind of designed around the 6 C's from Deloitte Institute, on inclusive leadership. And so we have a cohort that we've selected as a leadership team. So the leadership team got together and selected, I had some criteria in there, it had to be diverse candidates, it had to be gender diverse, it had to be racial, so we have some criteria in there, but we're going to do these cohorts, 6 months to go through these 6 C's to get our next level, mid-level leaders ready and comfortable to talk about what it's like to be an inclusive leader. We're going to train them on what it looks like to be an inclusive. This is going to include like a Berkman assessment. It's going to allow them coaching sessions directly with me. So you don't have to talk about it with everybody else if you don't want to. Come to me, be authentically you, have some vulnerability as a leader and say, I don't know how to deal with
X, Y, Z.
And let me help you figure out what that looks like. So what's next is this internal getting it together. Let's get it all right. And then my focus is to go external. We have some amazing people, our customers. We're right in the middle of an impactful growth plan. We call it DIG, Delivering Impactful Growth. McKinsey came and did this really nice consulting work for us to tell us what we need to do, because we received, Mo, last year when I first got there, we received quite a bit. It actually was a $250 million allocation for the government to help with our impactful growth, right?
Great.
So we are in the midst of that, and we are hiring folks, and we just created a mortgage division, and we're going to be talking about how that aligns. There's certain implications with this allocation. And so what I'm doing is getting our folks internally ready for this growth, and to be more inclusive and more fair and more diverse. And then we're going to go out, because our as we grow, our customer base is going to look different.
Absolutely.
The employees we hire are going to look different, and we need to be ready for kind of that mindset and that intentional, purposeful focus on.
Well, and I love that piece too. We talk a lot about those mid managers and those frontline managers impact your culture more than anybody else.
Absolutely.
Right. And so starting there is so key. Oh my gosh. So you are an absolute rock star.
Thank you. You are too.
You held it together when tech did what tech will do.
Yes.
I knew this was going to be a phenomenal conversation. I feel like we could keep talking forever.
Of course we can.
And I want you to leave me with one last truth bomb.
Oh, when the truth bomb about this, I got so many.
Right?
So I had to pick one. I had to pick which one I really wanted to bomb on you, to drop on you. I'd like to say that it's so DE&I, just the term alone, when you say DE&I, is causing all kind of angst right now. People are going for or against. I know me and my colleagues, we talk all the time about what this means for us personally and in the industries we serve in. But one of the truth bombs I'd like to leave is the DE&I, the work itself, it won't change and it shouldn't change, period. I think people need to get past being uncomfortable with it, because it's going to be here. And I think if you are a true advocate and ally for this work, you would know that it shouldn't change what you've been doing. Just continue to do what you've always been doing. Now, if it's just a job for you, then you may have a problem. But if you are deep in it, then the work, it won't change. You'll continue to do the things you need to do. So my truth bomb is that if you true in it, it's gonna stay the same. It shouldn't change.
Right. And carry on.
And move and keep moving. Keep it moving.
Yes. Yeah. Right. Keep moving. Keep like put on your great shoes.
I say put your boxing gloves on, because you know what I mean, and get in, and you're already in the ring. So just don't get on the ropes, right? Just continue boxing. Keep swinging.
And I think that's where it's so important for all of us to be in conversation like this.
I do too, Mo.
And
I once had a really good mentor of mine tell me, and I'm Dr. Steve Robbins, if you don't know him, he's amazing. But Dr. Robbins told me a long time ago, he said, tall trees face strong winds. And he said, be a tall tree. So that's kind of, I leave it like that, like be a tall tree, because you're going to face strong winds. You know, you won't knock the tree down, but.
Well, and it's when we know we're actually making progress.
Oh, yes.
A difference, right?
Yeah.
When we start to hit the strong winds.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh my gosh. Thank you. My heart is full. My brain is full.
Glad you could join me again.
Yes. Yeah, I know, me too. Thank you for rolling with it.
Yes.
Well, if you are not connected to Latresa, I encourage you to do that. I think that somebody from the team has already dropped Southern Bancorp's URL, so we can read some of the client things. Keep doing the work.
Thank you.
Keep doing the work.
I appreciate you.
I appreciate you. Y'all get out there and do the next right thing. Keep doing the work, as Latresa said. All right.
Yeah.
We'll see you next time on
See you later. Thank you.
Bye.